She's stolen money from you. She knows she has. She's stolen your land and she's sold your house on the land. She sold the land. And then she has the balls to come and ask you for money. What's the story, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Pete here from Thairish Times. It's been about a year and a half since I've interviewed my guest today. His name is Dakota. A lot of you will remember him on the channel. Both interviews I did with Dakota got a lot of attention, okay? A lot of views, a lot of interest. So there's a big update in this story, okay? So we're going to talk about that in this video. Now, I do realize that, you know, in a year and a half, there's a lot of people who would have subscribed to the channel that don't know the story. So what I'm going to do here is I've included the first 25 minutes of interview number 2, where Dakota recaps the whole story. So if you're coming in and you haven't seen these interviews before, I've included that first 25 minutes. You watch that and you'll be able to understand the full story, okay? If you've already seen that, then skip ahead to this number down here. I'm going to put chapters in as well, so skip ahead to this part of the video. And if I was to summarize Dakota's story in about 1 minute, I would say that his father is an American. He was fighting in the Vietnam War. He was stationed in Thailand and Isan, where he met Dakota's mother. Dakota was born in Thailand. Dakota's mother and father went back to America, where the relationship broke down, the marriage ended, and Dakota's mother went back to Thailand. And Dakota lost all contact with his mother, and he lost all contact with Thailand. For years, he grew up as an American in Texas. And it wasn't until a chance encounter with a Thai exchange student when Dakota was in his early 30s that Dakota rediscovered Thailand, and he heard Thai language for the first time, and Dakota was actually able to rediscover his Thai family through this exchange student. So it's an amazing story. So Dakota found his Thai family. He went to Thailand to meet them, and he found out that he had a piece of land. Sadly, his mother passed away, and because Dakota was the next of kin, he inherited a piece of land in Isan where he built a house. Dakota stayed in Thailand for a couple of years, and he went back to America when he married the Thai woman in Thailand, and they both went back to America. And then Dakota finds out that his house and land have been stolen by his Thai family, his uncle. They've sold the land and obviously the house on the land. So where we finished off on interview 2 was Dakota was facing a serious health operation. He was facing a kidney transplant. He was on a waiting list for a kidney transplant, and he said once he has his kidney transplant, he vowed to go back to Thailand to confront his Thai family. We're going to talk about his health. We're going to ask him, did he confront his Thai family? And he has interesting observations on all of that. So leave your comments down there as well, because I'm sure you're going to have your own opinions on it as well. So put the comments down in the comment section. I want to read them. Apologies for interrupting the video, folks. Don't kill me. But I got to keep the lights on here at Thairish Times. You know yourself. We got to keep the train going here. Keep the gravy train going. So in this video, I've teamed up with Timekettle, okay, and they've made this device called the W4 Pro AI Interpreter Earbuds. And let me tell you what it does, okay? So the W4 Pro supports 40 languages with 93 accents and then 13 official languages for offline use. And the device has a 95% translation accuracy with real-time translation capabilities. And the W4 Pro has a number of functions. I'll just tell you what they are. So you have one-on-one mode where speakers talk and listen at the same time without interrupting the flow of conversation. You also have media translation mode where it translates meetings, phone calls, subtitles for news and media. And then you have listen and play mode, which allows a user to listen to the speaker while AI breaks it down in real time, and then you're able to export that conversation and post meeting, which is really handy. So let's try it out with a Thai person. Let's try it out. Let's see, does it work? What's it like? And then I'll give you my opinion on it as well after. Hi, can you tell me where the nearest 7-Eleven is, please?
Ah, อยู่ใกล้มากค่ะเดินตรงไปประมาณ100 เมตรแล้วก็เลี้ยวซ้ายค่ะ 7-Eleven จะอยู่ด้านซ้ายมือค่ะ
โ Thank you. I have one more question also. Can you tell me what you think about foreigners in Thailand, please?
ฉันคิดว่าฉันชอบมากเลยที่ฉันได้เห็นชาวต่างชาติในประเทศไทยเขาดูมีความสุขแล้วก็มีรอยยิ้มเสียงหัวเราะในประเทศไทยรู้สึกดีมากๆค่ะ
Okay, happy, laughing and smiling, exactly how I am every time I come to Thailand. Thank you very much. Overall, I think this is a pretty good product if you're traveling in a country and you don't speak the language of the country you're traveling in. I think it's good for doing business as well. And what I like about it is you have the AI memo in the app, records and summarizes meetings, which can then be exported. The product retails for $449 US, and then there's a link in the description if you want to pick one up. Now, back to the video. Can you explain, first of all, your background?
Okay, well, my background, I'm half Thai, half American. I was born in Thailand, and when my father was a soldier during the Vietnam War, and 3 months after I was born, my father was discharged from the U.S. military, and he came back to America with my mother and I. And a lot of people might not know this, but the U.S. military had this huge Air Force base in the northeastern part of Thailand. The province is Ubon Ratchathani. And I think now some of your commenters or viewers might want to correct me, but I think Ubon Ratchathani International Airport, that was originally laid out and built by the United States military. It's now their airport. And so my mother went from probably the most rural part of Thailand to a major city in America. And it was very difficult for her to adapt. And so after about 3 years, my mother and father separated. Mom returned to Thailand alone. And my father and I remained in America, where I was raised. And then I grew up here, totally American, only speaking English. American culture is all I knew. But when I reached the age of 33, this crazy opportunity landed in front of me to go to Thailand and meet my mom's side of the family.
Just quickly explain that crazy opportunity, because that is mind-blowing.
Yes. Well, I was just a normal working guy, and I had a friend and his wife. A crazy opportunity fell on their lap to host a foreign exchange student. They had never had an interest. What it exactly was, it was the guy or the family who lived across the street. They were always hosting a foreign exchange student. They were part of these programs. And there was a boy who landed in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas airport. He was a foreign exchange student. His family, his host family, bailed on him at the very last minute. He was literally in the airport on U.S. soil. And the family said, "I'm sorry, we can't host him." So my friend's neighbor, in a panic, walked across the street to my friend's house and said, "Listen, I'm so sorry to put this on you, but there's a foreign exchange student at the airport right now. He has no place to sleep tonight. You have a big house, plenty of space. Can he sleep in your house tonight? I will make arrangements." And my friend and his wife said, "Sure, he can spend the night." One night turned into 2, into 3 nights. And in those 2 or 3 days, they really enjoyed him, this 16-year-old boy from Bangkok. And they said, "Is it possible he can stay here for 1 year. We have plenty of room. And they quickly did the paperwork, I mean, in a rush, and they made it happen. He ended up staying with my friend and his wife for the year. And my friend knew that I was half Thai because that's just a common question people would ask of me. Hey, what's your background? I would say I'm half Thai. So my friend called me and said, hey, you're not going to believe this, but my wife and I were hosting this foreign exchange student. He's a 16-year-old boy from Bangkok, Thailand. Would you like to come over and meet him? Of course, I said yes. I was very intrigued because at the time, I'm 33, I had never, ever met anyone from Thailand before, despite being half Thai. Never. And so I went over there and met him. And that's how the opportunity landed on me. I walked in, he was intrigued with me. Because I look Thai, but I don't speak Thai. That blew him away, and he asked about my background. I told him father is a U.S. soldier, mother is Thai, and how they broke up when I was about 3 years old. And he asked if I had any contact with them. I said, unfortunately, not at all. But I always knew my mom's full name by spelling and everything. I knew it, and I knew where I was born. And this was December 7th, 2007, a Sunday night in Texas. And with those two pieces of information, my mom's full name and where I was born, and he opens his cell phone. This is the time there's flip phones. And then he's dialing. And at this moment, I remember he said, okay, it's perfect. It's morning time in Thailand. And at that moment, that's when I learned about the difference in time, roughly 12 hours. And he starts talking on the phone. And I remember telling you this, that was the very, very first time in my life I'd ever heard someone speak Thai. And I was just blown away. And like the typical foreigner, I was telling you, it just sounds like gibberish. It doesn't even sound like a language. And so I'm talking to my buddy, catching up, and at the same time, in the corner of my eye, I'm sort of watching him and listening to him speak Thai on the phone. He hung up a couple of times, dialed again. This went on for about 30, 45 minutes. And I remember during that time, he asked me if I had an uncle, and I wasn't sure. I heard my father once mention my mom had brothers, how many I didn't know. And after about 30, 45 minutes, he hung up the phone and he walks up to me with this little piece of paper and says, here's their email address. And by the way, your mother passed away 5 years ago. At this moment, I'm in disbelief because it just didn't seem like, how can you have done that? And I remember the email address, it just seemed like one of those spam email addresses. It didn't look real. It wasn't like someone's name at whatever Gmail or hotmail.com. It was just seemed like just a group of random letters and numbers. And that just didn't seem real, but he wasn't laughing. He was very serious. And so I remember I went home and looking at just this little piece of paper. And it was a Hotmail email address. And I remember thinking they have email in Thailand. I mean, I've never left the US. The US is all I've known. I sent an email saying, hey, I got this email address from a kid named Ming. That's his name, Ming. And sent it off. Got a reply the next day. and they said hello, and the reply, it had an attachment, and I opened up the attachment, and it was this picture. It was a color picture, blurry color picture, back when color pictures first were invented. They weren't anywhere clear like today. And it was an image of a young guy holding a baby. And my initial thought, what is this? And then I increased the size of the photo and looked, and I said, I think that baby is me. Because it's not every day we see our own baby photos. And so at first I thought it was just some crazy photo, but as I looked, I was convinced. I just, 70%, 80%, 90%, 100% convinced that baby is me. And so I replied and I said, I am that baby in the picture. Who are you? And they said, we are your family. I am your mom's little brother.
Wow.
And I'm just the feelings in me, the adrenaline. I'm like, you can't be serious. And at the time, there was MSN Messenger. They asked me to download it and have a video chat. And I went, wow. I didn't have a video camera. I had to rush out to go buy one, get it connected, and we set up a time. And I remember just sitting there. I had my camera up, and when you're waiting, their side, the share screen is black. So I'm waiting and waiting, and it finally illuminates, and it's a group of people. It's my mom's little brother, his wife, which would be my aunt, and there were two young people, their two children, which would be my cousins. And my two cousins, their English is pretty good. And I'm just kind of a little confused. I'm waving hello. And then they're holding pictures up to the screen. And the first picture they held up, I'll never forget. It was a picture of my dad when he was about 18 or 19. And he was skinny, which now my dad, as he's grown, he's put pounds on, but his face was still the same. And I'd never seen a picture of my father skinny like that before. And I just started laughing. It was like, wow, that's my dad when he was 18, 19 in the military. And then that's it. No doubt. That was it. And then they showed pictures of my mom, and then we started communicating. And this was a few days after I got the phone number, or no, an email address from Ming. And then they said, hey, you should come to Thailand. And so I went and got a passport. I'd never even had a passport. So I went and got one. And the following month, the first week of January of 2008, I flew there, scheduled myself to stay only for 1 week. I did not know what it was going to be like. In my mind, I thought, no matter how bad it is, I can tolerate it for 1 week, because I had a lot of fear in me going there. Even though I'm half Thai, I've never left America, and I just felt, well, Americans are taught that this is the safest place in the world. This is where you want to be. And here I am leaving this safety zone, I guess you want to call it, and going to a third world country. So there was a lot of fear. And I get there, I met them. The entire week I had, it was very emotional. It was amazing. I think I barely slept the entire week. And then I'll try to go through the story real quick, but they invited me to come back in April of that year. And they said, hey, we celebrate our new year during April. And so I flew back April 1st, scheduled myself to stay the entire month, the entire 30 days. That's the limit a person can stay on just a US passport, and celebrated Songkran. And again, it was awesome, an amazing experience. And then at the end of the month, I left. They said, hey, you should come back, move here. And my first question, well, what kind of job can I do? I can't just sit around. And they said, oh, no, you can be a teacher. And teach what? And they said, teach English. And my question from that is, well, how can I teach English if I can't read, write, and speak Thai? And they said, oh, no problem, no problem at all. You just go in the classroom and talk. And I thought, well, that doesn't seem right, but I said, okay. And so they advised me to fly back October 1st of that same year. And they said the schools in Thailand have their mid-year break, about a 3-week break. It's a good opportunity to get an English job real easy. Should be very easy for you. So I did. Flew back October 1st. My first 2 days in Bangkok, I decided to stay in Bangkok. Well, they advised me to. And I visited 7 schools in my first 2 days in Bangkok. And I believe 3 or 4 offered me a position right on the spot. It was school number 7 I chose. And so I liked it. I have a job and I have a place to stay. I'm in the country on my US passport. And even though by default, I learned that because I was born there, mom Thai, father American, I'm a dual citizen by default, but I didn't know this. I only intended to stay 1 year, but when you're having a good time quickly becomes 2, 3, 4, ended up being 7 years.
Let's talk about the part 2, because that was the one got a lot of reaction from people in the comment section about the land dispute and the issue with land ownership between you and your uncle.
Okay, when I got to Thailand, they showed me my mom's property, her land. And they said, this is yours. And my mom had 2 separate pieces of land. She had a plot of land where her house sat on, which there wasn't much left of the house. It was just pretty much falling apart. Then there was like about maybe 1 kilometer away, there was another piece of land where she had a little pig farm. And so they said, this is yours. And I said, oh, okay. I mean, I wasn't expecting anything when I went over there. I just wanted to meet them. But they said, I guess by law, you're the son. This is yours. And I said, okay. Wow. Okay. Thank you. And when the idea of me moving to Thailand came up, I said, wow. My initial thought was to live in Isan. The province is Amnatchalan, the province next to Ubon Ratchathani, where I was born. So I said, wow, if I live here, I'm going to need something more comfortable, because people in Isan, all due respect, they live very primitive. Very, very, very primitive. And I says, I can't live long term like this. I'm just not accustomed to it. So they brought up the idea of me building a house where my mother's old house was. And they said something like this would be about $25,000. And I said, oh, that's it? I mean, in America, you can barely buy a car for that much money. I said, okay. I transferred. We looked at other houses in the area to show me examples. And I said, oh, yeah, that's nice. And so I transferred them. I think it was either $20,000 or $25,000. I transferred over to them, and they started the process of building a house. They leveled my mom's land. They brought in a bunch of dirt, built up the foundation, and built a nice house, a really, really nice house, impressive. And the plan was for me to stay there initially And then my uncle said, well, you might want to get a teaching job in Bangkok because they'll pay you more. The schools in Isan will only pay you maybe about half of what you can get in Bangkok. But I had this blue book in my hand. They call it the house registration or the Tom Beyond bond.
Yeah.
And it had my name on it. And I was the owner. And so I was like, wow, okay. I don't live there full time, but whenever I go visit, I have a nice, comfortable place to sleep. You know, a proper toilet, hot shower, air con, all that, very comfortable. I could stay there, no issues. When I returned to the US, it was 2015. And I believe it was about a year or two after I moved here, a cousin of mine contacted me and said, hey, your uncle did something bad. And I said, what did he do? He said he went to the AMPER, as their government office, they call it the AMPER, and transferred ownership of your house into his name. And I went, well, why would he do that? You know, how did he do that? I'm not even there. Now, to rewind back, my first trip to Thailand, January of 2008, that first week, they took me to the AMPER office and they had me sign documents. And I was told that signing these documents would officially put the land in my name. Officially, because I owned it by default because I'm the son of my mom. But signing these documents would officially put it in my name. Now, all these documents are 100% Thai language, and I'm signing my name in English, and I'm taking their word. So as a lesson to the viewers, always have documents translated to English. I trusted my family 100%. No reason not to believe them as far as I felt and from what I saw. And so in my mind, I owned the land and in my name. And I didn't keep a copy of the documents, my mistake. And so when we built a house, we had to get a Tom Beyond bond, a house registration. I had that. Now my name was in there in English. That was the only thing in English. The rest I couldn't even read, but I was told that's the house registration. So I physically had that with me here in America. And then my cousin said, hey, your uncle did something bad. He transferred the land and the house into his name. And I was not happy about that.
Dakota, thanks for coming back on again. I really appreciate it. So it's been 18 months or a year and a half roughly since our last interview, part two, okay? Now the audience have just watched the recap, so they're kind of familiar with the story. Or some of them already know the story and they're coming in kind of fresh in on this part. So where we finished on part two was you were going to get your kidney transplant. You were on a waiting list to get your kidney transplant, and then you vowed that you were going to, once you were fit and healthy, you were going back to Thailand to uh, meet your Thai family to get the money back. The house and the land were sold. Your aunt has 1 million baht that you say, you said that's your money, and you're going to go back, talk to your aunt, and see if you can get your money back. That's where we left it in part two. So can you give us the update on your health, and then I know there's another big update coming along as well because we're speaking by email.
Yes, well, since our last conversation, and well, first, thank you for having me. But yeah, I received a phone call, and about 4.5 months ago, in fact, it was January 11th of this year, and the hospital said they had a kidney for me. And it was a fortunate and unfortunate thing because a very young man um, lost his life in a car accident. And he had it in his heart to donate his organs. And I was one of the lucky recipients. And so they called me, and this was about 11:30 in the morning, and they asked how soon could I get to the hospital. I lived in the middle of the city. I said I could be there within 30 minutes easily. They said, excellent. We have you scheduled for surgery at 5 p.m.
Wow, that fast.
That fast. It was a Saturday, January 11th. And in fact, I was just coming back from the grocery store. I backed into the driveway. I was going to unload the groceries. I shut off my vehicle, took off my seatbelt, and my phone rang. And I remember looking at the caller ID, and it was an out-of-state number, an area code I did not recognize. I thought it was a telemarketer, a sales call, and I almost did not pick up the phone.
Oh, okay.
Almost. And I was just gonna let it go to voicemail, but I picked it up and thinking it was gonna be a sales call. And I said, hello, kind of sarcastically, and it was a very polite sounding lady. Is this Dakota Patterson? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, I'm from, I forget what organization, and she says, we have a kidney for you. And I just lit up. And so she said, how soon can you be at the hospital? And I said, oh, 30 minutes. I live about 10 minutes away. And she said, all right, see you there. And then
How'd you
my
feel then? Were
wife,
you excited? Were you nervous?
oh my God, the adrenaline, just the adrenaline. Because I was a little tired that day. And I just had to go to the grocery store. That I was gonna unload that and go to the gym. And once I get exercising, my energy builds up. Yeah, so that was my plan for the day. That's just a typical day in my life. And so I ran upstairs, and my wife sleeps kind of late because she works late. And I got her up and said, honey, they have a kidney for me. And she jumps out of bed and just had her robe on. And I said, hey, just drive me to the hospital and drop me off. And so we got her flip-flops on and just drove me to the hospital. And I said, just drive up to the door and drop me off, and go to work. Don't worry about me. They're going to take good care of me. And because I'm very fortunate, I live near one of the best hospitals in the country. I'm very, very lucky to be only 10 minutes from there. And so I walked in and told them I was there for my transplant. They walked me to my room, told me to change out. And I remember just sitting there, and they were doing the preliminary tests on me and everything. And I remember at one point the nurse said, you can turn the TV on if you want. But I had no interest in the TV just because there were so many thoughts racing through my mind. In my situation, they had to remove both of my kidneys. And as a result, I had been doing dialysis 7 days a week because I literally had no kidneys. And so I was just thinking the past, few years, everything that I've been through, and it was still surreal. I couldn't stop smiling. I couldn't stop thinking that I've been waiting for this moment, because there are people who wait years. In fact, I know one lady, she waited 13 years. And
Wow.
here, me at the 3.5 year mark, I get a kidney. In fact, I know a guy at the gym that I go to who's been waiting 10 years. And I know another guy I spoke to a couple of days ago, he waited 7 years. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm so lucky. But I remember they came in, the lady told me, she said, you're getting a very good kidney. And I said, oh, she said, yeah. And then she shared with me the situation about the young man, and I said, "Oh," and so I'm at this point, I'm happy and sad at the same time.
Did they give you a young man's name?
No, they wouldn't give me his name, and but I do have an opportunity to communicate with the family. They advised I wait 1 year post-transplant before writing them a letter. And so, but I will write them a letter come January and just thank them, for having a son with such a big heart to, be a donor at a young age like that. Because I never thought of anything like that at a young age, and because
Do you
in
know how
my,
old he was?
they just said he was exceptionally young. They didn't say the exact number, but they said he was a very exceptionally young man. And um, and I just thought about him. I don't know his name, but I just thought, wow, man, that's, they say everything in life happens for a reason. And so I just think, boy, here I am, I'm 50 years old, and they said, as they did say, he's less than half my age. And so I'm thinking probably maybe 21, give or take a couple years. But they did use the word exceptionally young. And they kept remarking about how good and healthy this kidney is that I have in me.
When
And
you had the operation, then when you woke up, was there any pain?
no, because I was still sedated. There was really no pain ever. Um, I mean, a little bit of soreness, tenderness, because you have like there's like a U type incision on the lower right. So just a little bit of tenderness, but the surgery went perfectly. And obviously, I'm not awake during the surgery. I woke up when I was back in my room, and I was a bit sedated, but I felt great, no problems, and the kidney started working right away, and so yeah, the next day or within a couple of days, my wife commented that the color in my face returned, which I never noticed. Um, but even my nurse at the clinic, the dialysis clinic I used to go to, mentioned that because she said like I had like kind of like a vampire appearance, had kind of like the pale face.
Well, I know I
And
didn't want to say it, but I noticed that as well. Like
yeah,
from the second time I interviewed you compared to the first time, I
hmm
noticed that you had a paler complexion.
yeah. See, I never noticed it. I guess I don't know. I just never noticed it. But I remember, I think it was the second day when my wife walked in the room. She said, "Wow, your face." And I'm thinking, what's wrong? She said, "Your color. You have color." And that was the surgery's on a Saturday night. So it was Sunday. She walked in. And even Monday, she said, "Boy, your face." And then the nurse who treated me, who I used to see once a month, because I did dialysis here in my living room, and that's one thing that I'm very thankful for. I didn't have to go into a clinic. They taught me how to use the dialysis machine. And so not many people get that privilege. And so, but I walked into the dialysis clinic, and the nurse, as soon as she saw me, she went, "Wow, your face, your color is back. You look so good." And so, yeah, it's done a lot of changes to my body. I
Did you
feel
feel
good.
good? Did you feel good? Did you have more energy?
No, I was on when I was doing dialysis, I was on medication that would give me energy, that would help all that. And so I went to the gym every day, and I followed the diet strictly. And I took all the meds as prescribed, and that's why I had the energy to go to the gym every day and did everything I did. And because patients are notorious for eating fast food, drinking sodas, which is a big no-no. You see them walk into the clinic with their bag of McDonald's. And, that's just a big no-no. And it's going to make you sick. It's going to make you weak. But um, a kidney disease diet is not good. But I did it. I ate exactly what they told me. It didn't taste good, but it sustained me. I ate salad and just things that just didn't taste good at all.
I bet you didn't drink a beer.
Never drank a soda, never drank a sports drink. All I drank, literally only water and my coffee in the morning. That is it. That is it. And there's a special kind of milk. It doesn't really taste good, but I drank it. I drank it. And so you just have to you got to hunker down and just do the things that you don't like. And a lot of the foods are like, ugh, but I did it. And I took all the meds every day. I never skipped. And that's why I felt so good. That's why I was able to go, because I used to jog 5 miles on the treadmill and I would lift weights for 1 or 2 hours. And it isn't normal for people on dialysis. In fact, people in the gym, they would recognize these scars here. See, I don't know if you see it, but this is where I would inject the 2 needles. And I had several people come up to me and said, "Hey, you do dialysis. How can you be in the gym doing all this?" And I tell them I just follow the strict diet. I take my meds every day. I do exactly what the medical staff tells me to do. And I've had people share stories like, "Oh, my uncle, man, he can't even, get up off the sofa. He's so tired." And I ask, "Well, what is he eating?" "Can't eat that." "What does he drink?" "Oh, no, can't drink that." And so I really sacrificed a lot because I like pizza. I like fried chicken.
Oh, I like that too.
I love it. I couldn't eat that. I could not eat ice cream. I could not eat ice cream. And I had my dessert was Jello. That
Oh,
was my dessert. That was my dessert.
I used to have
And
that. My granny used to give me that when I was a kid. Jello.
yeah, yeah. So that was like a snack for me. It's like, wow, a reward, a bowl of Jello. And oatmeal. I don't really like oatmeal, but that's what I ate. And and I had a little kitchen scale. I would measure the amount of chicken and fish. I could have 6 ounces of chicken, 6 ounces of fish, and I'd weigh it. And it just takes that, that you got to be very strict, and it's not something many people can do. And it's very hard. It is a sacrifice. I had to limit the amount of protein I would take in. And, it, and I remember going to the dialysis clinic and I would see the people doing dialysis in the center and they all look like the living dead. In fact, I had one dialysis patient come up to me. He thought I was a staff member. He asked me for help. And I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't work here. I could go get someone for you. And he said, well, who are you? And I said, I'm a patient here. And he looked at me just, what? I'm walking around, I got my sneakers on. I just came from the gym, I got my tank top on, and my muscles are kind of swelled up from lifting weights. And he's like, what? And I used to have to give myself injections right here in the stomach, at my own injections. And I would do it. And
I badly wanted to be successful in this, and because I just feel like I have a lot of years left. I'm not old, I'm 50, and my grandpa lived to be 95. My great grandfather lived to be 94. So I just feel like I have a lot more time left, and I'm going to fight for it.
Well, Dakota, it looks like you're doing really well. It sounds like
Yes.
you've done everything really, really well. But in the last video, you
Mm-hmm.
did say that when you get your health back, you even kind of said it again. You said, I will beat this. And you said, I will go back and confront my Thai family about the stolen land and house. Is that the plan?
Yes, I will. But at the same time, because of something that happened literally about 2 weeks ago, that kind of makes me wonder. Okay, my plan was to go back to Thailand and confront them and ask about the money from the sale of my mom's land and, see what I could get out of it. And, but then 2 weeks ago, my cousin messaged me on Facebook, someone whom I haven't seen in 12 years, barely even communicated with in 12 years, messaged me and asked me for money. She said she was in a bad situation. And as soon as I saw the message, I just put my head down. I mean, oh my God. And I asked her, what situation was she in? And she would not reply. She would not say anything. And then she said that her father is sick, which I do know he's sick. He has the same type of kidney disease as me. And, but I know he's covered under whatever government health insurance because my cousin is a school teacher. And because she's a government employee, my wife explained this to me. Her parents are covered under the whatever government insurance. So he's getting care. And so I've always known that he was sick. He does dialysis. And so I called another cousin of mine and asked, hey, what is going on? My other cousin's asking for money, and he says, oh, she's having problems with her husband.
What kind of problems?
And they did not share with me. And he said, yeah, she's having problems with her husband. And so I do know they live in a very, very nice house in Konkan, a very nice house because they posted pictures of it on Facebook. And so then she messaged me and said, hey, she was pretty upset. She didn't like that I reached out to someone else asking about her. She said, hey, don't talk to my relatives about me. Don't talk about my business to anyone else.
But she's looking for
And
money and she's being very vague about what the reasons why she wants it.
that's what I told her. I said, listen, you're asking me for money, and I need to know why. I just don't give money out blindly, and so, but at this point, you know, it's a flat out no, because I know she got the money from my mom's land. If she's asking me for money, she's gone through that money.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
It's it's
That
it's
million, it was a
gone.
million baht, wasn't it?
They said it was about 800,000 baht, is what
Okay.
I've been told. About 800,000 baht, so close to a million. And so if she's asking me for money now, then that 800,000 baht is gone, which I'm going to go ahead and guess that perhaps part of it or maybe all of it was used to get that house in Konkan. Maybe just a guess. And because it's a very nice house. And
How old is this lady, your cousin?
let's see, she's about five. She would be 45, about in the mid 40s, a few years younger than me. Yeah.
So she's a teacher in a
And
school.
in Konkan, yes.
She's at 45, she's probably earning 35,000 baht a month to 40,000.
And it's the only job she's ever had since she finished university. And so she's been a government employee for more than 20 years.
Yeah, it starts off at like 15,000 and it goes up every year. And I think, when
Yeah,
they finished around, when they're around 60, they could be on about 55,000.
yeah. And now she did send me a picture of her father, which is my uncle, in the hospital. And he just lying there on the bed. And I think she was using that to try to kind of prompt me or to get me to send money.
But
So I
he was the
called
uncle
another.
that stole that stole the land
Yeah,
and the
yes,
house.
yes, yes, yes. And somehow he was able to go to, I guess they call it the AMPER or government office, and get it out of my name and into his name. Because I have the what do you call it, the blue book, and
Yeah.
so I don't know how he did it without that. What he did, what he said, and so because I thought that blue book was ironclad. So I don't know what he said. If maybe perhaps he knows someone personally, and but yeah. So she sent me a picture of him in the hospital, and so I contacted another cousin. I said, "Hey, what's going on? With my uncle. He's in the hospital." And then he said, "Oh, he's fine. He had an infection, and he's okay." And which is common with people with on dialysis. They'll get an infection, but they can fix it if you catch it early. And so I said, okay, so they're gonna fix him. He'll be fine. And so and I haven't. This was like I said, just 2 weeks ago, and I was just very disappointed. Like I said, 12 years. It was 2013. Yeah, by 2014, because I left Thailand in 2015. So it was about a year before I left, something like that. I saw them, and I maybe have communicated with them 2 or 3 times on Facebook. I'll just comment, how's everyone doing? Just like that. And for her to reach out and ask me for money, and why not ask the people over there for money? Because I have one cousin, he's doing really well, and he started a business, and he seems to be doing well. He has trucks, they do deliveries, and and so my wife was looking at those trucks and said, "Oh, each one of those trucks, that's a million baht." And I'm surprised that she wouldn't reach out to them
Yeah, they'd be doing quite
versus,
well down there in Rayong.
they're doing very well. In fact, I remember when my youngest cousin, he graduated uni, he started out at that factory making 30,000 baht. And I say it's German owned because they all had to learn how to read, write, and speak German to get the job. So they're all doing really well. And I'm surprised, like, why don't you ask them? They're in the country with you.
And have you ever confronted this your aunts and uncles and your cousin about, hey, you sold my land. You stole my house.
Nope,
You
not,
sold
well,
it.
no, I did 2 weeks ago, or I communicated with her. I said, hey, what about the money from the sale of my mom's land? No response.
There you go.
No response at all. And and so, which I figured that. I was like, yeah, let's
She
see
just
what she
read and
says to
didn't
that.
reply.
Didn't exactly. Just read it and didn't reply. And so I know that money is gone. And in my simple-minded self, a part of me was thinking, well, maybe she'll save the money to send her daughter to university. Because part of me is a bit naive, and because I save money, I think maybe she will. But a lot of people, when they get money, they blow it. And,
I'm not gonna say
so,
all Thai people are bad with money, but I have met a lot of Thai people that once they have it, they spend it. That's all they see. They have 1 million baht. Okay, and I'm gonna spend 1 million baht.
oh, same thing in America. I mean, individual debt in America is at an all-time high. I mean, auto loan debt, student loan debt, in basic consumer debt. I mean, all-time highs in America. So same thing here. To me, America is the land of materialism.
Yeah, well, it's the home of consumerism, isn't it? It's all about,
Yes.
the dollar, baby.
Yes.
Capitalism,
In
the home of
fact,
capitalism.
there's a church maybe 5 minutes from my house. About every 2 or 3 months, they give away food. And you should see the line of nice cars lining up for free food. I'm thinking, what? Look at these nice cars, and they can't afford to buy food. I mean, it causes a traffic jam.
So Dakota, so the big update then is that she's asked for money. You figured out, okay, if she's asking for money, then this million baht or 800,000 baht is gone. You
It's
said it to
gone.
her like, hey, what about the money you sold
Yep.
my mother's land, which is actually technically your land at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you've fleeced me, you've scammed me, you've sold the land and the house that I built on the land, and now you're asking me for money.
Exactly. And and she said she came to me. I asked her, why did you come to me and not, you know, everyone in Rayong? They're doing really well. She said she did not want them to worry about her.
But she's okay for you to worry about her.
Yeah, but she's okay for me, and then when I told her when I got my kidney, what during that exchange, well, actually, she started out the conversation, "How are you doing?" And I replied, "I'm doing fine. Recently had a kidney transplant." And then when she replied, she didn't even acknowledge it, like didn't even say congratulations or how are you doing. And she says, "I am in trouble and I need your help." And I went, "Okay. And can you help me? I need money. I am in big trouble." And that's what I wanted to know. What kind of trouble? I mean, and she wouldn't reply to that. And like I said, that's when I reached out to another cousin, her brother actually, and I just wanted to know, what is she okay? And that's just what he said. Well, she's having problems with her husband. And then she gets all mad at me. Do not talk to anyone about my business.
Yeah, because you're causing her to
And
lose face. Then you're
yeah,
you're
yeah,
talking behind her
yeah.
back, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And because I remember I was video chatting with a cousin of mine, and my wife and my wife was helping me translate, and we were just talking about things in general. I think they were taking a trip or something to the beach, and I asked about this particular cousin, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, she's doing okay," and communicating. And then when we finished the video chat, my wife says, "They don't like her." And I said, "What do you mean?" "I could tell by their voice when you said her name. They don't like her." She was explaining to me their tone of voice.
hmm.
And because my wife told me, they said, "We don't talk to her." Yeah. And I remember the very first time I went to Thailand, the day before I left, to come back to the US, um, she asked me for money. She said she needed money to go to the dentist. And it was about 10,000 baht. And so I gave it to her. And then I come to find out that a dentist in Thailand is not near that much. And the fact that she was a government employee, she wouldn't have to pay anything. And because I remember I used to go to the dentist in Thailand just for a basic cleaning, and it was 300 baht. It was nothing. And she has nice teeth. I mean, I can see that visually. There's nothing wrong. But she was like, "Oh, I need money for a dentist." Had to putting her hand like that as if, maybe a bad tooth or something. So I just have to, distance myself from her.
Do you think she viewed you as being naive? Here's this Farang, he's just finding his, well, Farang that's just finding his Thai roots. I mean, you've gone over there. You're American. I mean, you didn't live when you went over there first. You didn't live. You never. You didn't speak Thai. It was the first time in Thailand. You were very much an American there, and um, did they view you as this soft touch? Like, here's this Farang. This guy must be making money in America. He's had businesses. He's got some money, and we need some money. We're gonna lie to this guy and try and get see how much we can get out of him.
I would agree. I would say a naive Farang, a naive Farang. And because I mean, they do look at me as a relative because they see my appearance and they all comment how I look like my mom. But you know, that part, they can't help it. They do look at me as the naive Farang, just like when foreigners show up in places like Pattaya, the ladies see, oh, this is a fresh guy, and let's go after him. And so it was a lesson I learned. Like I said, I've never been out of the U.S. before, you know, once I got here. And so, yeah, and I was young. I was 33 at the time, and we live and learn. But I'll never make that mistake again. I'm older, I'm wiser, I've made mistakes. And so, but at this point, when I do go back, and I do plan on going back, I'm thinking Songkran of next year because my medical staff, they prefer I not leave the country for 1 year post transplant just to be safe. And so I'm thinking Songkran next year. My wife and I are going to fly out there and spend some time. And I would not want to bring it up with my uncle just because of his health. I don't want him to be stressed out over anything. And
But he's the
I
guy who
just think,
stole. He's the guy who made the decision
yeah,
to.
yeah, exactly. But I do have to, I know what he's going through because I went through it. And you don't want to be stressed out and, counting, he's in his early 70s. So it's just, but bottom line is that money's gone. It's gone. And especially, like I said, what happened 2 weeks ago, her messaging me, telling me she needs money, it's gone. And it happens. And ultimately, in the long run, it won't really have that much of effect on my life overall. And so I'll be fine. And just life will go on, and they will never get a penny out of me again.
Good. You know what I like
And
about you,
never.
Dakota? You have morals and you don't seem to be bitter. I know if it was
Hmm.
me, and I know my personality, I'm 38 years old, so I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm old, but I'm definitely not young. Um, I know that I would want revenge, and this is like a
Hmm.
bad kind of the dark side of me. Like I have that in me where I'm like I would want revenge, and I would do what it takes to get revenge. However, I could do it. Um, and I don't know how I do it, but I mean, I would just be contemplating, like, okay, these people screwed me over. What could I do for revenge?
Hmm.
And I would wait on it. I would sit on it, and I would probably plot and scheme. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's not good mentally because it takes you to a dark place, and you have that forgiveness in you. I can see that you're kind of like you just said. I mean, it's 800,000 baht. Well, what's that? $20,000 ish. I mean, it's not a huge amount of money, especially if you're in America and you're working and you're earning money there and you're living there. It's not a huge sum of money, but obviously in Thailand, that is a huge sum of money for people out in Isan. They would, some people would never even earn that in their lifetimes. So,
Yeah.
you don't seem to be bitter, which is good. And that's what I just want to, that's what I admire about you. Do you feel bitter or angry when you think about it?
I was a little bit, and I won't say angry, and I won't say bitter, but just a bit disappointed, and maybe a tad bit bitterness. But I felt a bit of joy 2 weeks ago when she asked me for money, and I said no. That made me feel good a little bit.
Yeah, she came crawling
It,
back.
yeah, she came crawling back, you know, messaging me after not seeing me for more than 10 years, asking for money. And I said no. I took pleasure in that. That made me feel good. I'm sad to see she spent the money. I'd have been happier if she'd held on to it, but she made her choice, and whatever she did, it seems like it wasn't wise. And but yeah, just the fact that she asked and I said no, that's enough revenge for me. And the fact that we still have a lot of life left. I'm 50. I'm thinking she's in her mid 40s. We have a lot of life left, and she will never get a single baht out of me. That's revenge right there, the way I look at it. And
Do you think it's a
and
cultural thing, Dakota? Like, you see these other channels. There's a couple of channels, and they narrate stories, and people, subscribers, write in stories, and then the YouTuber will read them out. And there is kind of a general theme with some of those where, guy meets girl, girl asks for money, guy builds house on this girl's land, and these guys are obviously foolish as well. You can't just blame the girl, but they are foolish. But there seems to be a theme of like asking for money or asking for things, and it's I can only speak about Ireland because I live here, but I've never had any friend or anyone in this country ever come to me and ask me for money. Now I know this is a wealthy country. Ireland is a rich country, you know, but I've never had. There are poor people that are struggling here as well, especially in the last since the cost of living crisis in the last couple of years. But there isn't a culture of asking where, think of it. She's stolen money from you. She knows she has. She's stolen your land and she's sold your house on the land. She sold the land, and then she has the balls to come and ask you for money. Like, if I did
hmm
that to you, how could I ever come back and look you in the face again or send you a message and ask you for money again? I just wouldn't be able to do it. I'm like, I've already screwed
right.
this guy. He's never going to give it to me again. Plus, I don't have the,
hmm
I wouldn't be able to do it. Like, but she was able to do that. Is that just a different kind of culture where it's like, I'm going to ask this guy again? All he can do is say no.
The way I look at it, when she said she was in trouble, it has to be something so bad to where her back was truly at the wall and she's just traveling down any possible avenue. I don't know what kind of trouble she's in. And the only clue I have is just she's having issues with her husband. But her back must truly be against the wall. And I imagine she's tried to get money using other means. And I hope her life isn't on the line. Um, I hope whatever trouble she's in isn't that bad. I don't know, but um,
You could be really vindictive and be like, yeah, I'll give you the money. How much do you want? Okay. I'll give you extra. And have the conversation with her. What's your bank details? Okay, I'm going to go now. And then kind of string her along for a couple of days. Did that transfer go through yet? Did the transfer go through yet? I mean, if you want to
yeah,
be really vindictive, and
yeah,
that's just me being
yeah,
a prick, but I'm just
yeah,
saying,
yeah. No, I stay pretty occupied with more important things than trying to do anything like that. But I see your point. Yeah, stringing her along, and but I'm not a very drama-driven guy, and I live my life. I'm very comfortable, in my skin. I'm very comfortable with what I have, and I'm very appreciative. I'm very appreciative of what I have. I mean, I was born in Isan, in Ubon Ratchathani, and the war came to an end, the Vietnam War, that is, and I feel so fortunate that my dad demanded to take me here to the U.S. He demanded it. And even after 3 years, when my mom left, my mom wanted me, and my dad said, "You're not taking my son." And it's harsh when a couple breaks up. It's very emotional. And when there's kids involved, And I experienced some bad things growing up, but overall, I am lucky to have been raised in the U.S., to have the opportunity that I have to live in this nice condo and to live 10 minutes away from one of the best hospitals in the country. I see all that, and I go to the grocery store and I get anything I want. Like I said, within my dietary restrictions, I don't worry about money. And, and I'm so thankful for what I have. I'm sitting in a nice, comfortable sofa, and, I have my dog, and my wife is happy. And I just see all that I have. And maybe it's a gift. And, because I'm not a millionaire, I don't want anyone to think that. I'm just financially, I'm comfortable. I could sit back and collect disability, but I want to get out and work. And in fact, the hospital where I got my treatment, they offered me a position. And I told them I would take it. They said it's an easy job, no pressure. They understand my situation, and I'll do it, and give me something to do. And the pay is good, benefits are good, and I could see myself happy doing that. And so if I'm happy, my wife is happy, that's the ultimate wealth, in my opinion. And
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
There's a lot to be
because
said. I know people like to there are lots of videos out there that say the West is dead and stuff like that, but there's a lot of perks about living in a Western
oh my
country.
God, yes,
Like you said,
yes,
you're getting disability benefits.
yes.
If you're sick, I'm sure that doesn't happen in Thailand if you're sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, my wife is blown away at the benefits that I get. She said, this does not happen in Thailand. I mean, I have nurses come to my house, they check on me, they ask me if I have food. Like, oh, yeah, there's plenty of food in the fridge. And they ask me if I feel safe in my neighborhood. Like, yeah, I feel fine. They ask me if I need a ride to and from the doctor. It's like, no, no, I've got a car. And I mean, just it's, I'm lucky to have grown up here, and there's too many people in this country don't feel that. They feel they're oppressed and they can't find a job. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? And there's so many jobs out here, but there's so many just lazy people, and a lot of immigrants come here. They're looking for freebies, and they just want to take from America and not put back, not give.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that as well in Ireland. I know we're getting kind of onto a separate topic, but I
Hmm.
believe if you're going to go to another country and emigrate to another country, you need to work and pay into the system, pay your tax. So, like, why should someone come to Ireland, the UK, America, never paid into anything and sit back and just get a free house and free money and free food and get everything for free and just take, 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 take. I
Yeah,
didn't
I
get
mean,
that in
working isn't.
Thailand.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to Thailand, they said I can work over there, and and I would do what? They said you could be a teacher, and I did it 7 years. I enjoyed every minute of it, and you know, and so, but I've always worked, and I feel like I have more years of working in me, at least 10 or 15 more years. And the retirement age in America is 62. I feel I could definitely do that. And, if I were to move back in Thailand, I would think I'm strong enough to go back into teaching if they let me. And I know some people might not want to hire an older teacher, but I imagine I could find some school that would let me teach.
You would,
And
you'd find some skill for sure, yeah. So
yeah,
is that the plan? Could you see yourself say, okay, we're in 2025 now. Could you see yourself within 5 years going back to Thailand?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, what I did to prepare myself for that, I earned a master's degree in education while over here. And because one of the reasons there were several reasons I left Thailand, but one of the reasons when I was there, I only had an associate's degree, which is a 2-year degree. I didn't have a bachelor's degree. And the school director came up to me and said, "Hey, we might not be able to renew your work permit because you don't have a bachelor's degree." And so that was one of the reasons I said, "Okay, I'm going to go back to the U.S. I'm going to get a bachelor's degree," and which I did. I worked my tail off, and I got that bachelor's degree. And then the school counselor said, "Hey, you might want to try to get a master's degree," which I thought she was out of her mind. I was like, "Yeah, I can't do that." And she said, "I think you can." So I enrolled in a master's program, and it was hard. It was hard. It was not easy. I don't want anyone to think that, but I did it. I completed it, and I earned a master's in education. So that'll help me legitimately. I don't like doing anything under the table, but I'll do it if I have to, but I prefer to be above board. And so, yeah, I have prepared myself to go back to Thailand and easily get a teaching job. Now, I would not want to work at an international school because I knew someone who did that, and he said, "You're very busy. You're very busy."
Yeah, but if you have
And
the finances already kind of from the States, I mean, you could
yeah,
just do something a job that keeps you busy, gets you out meeting people, not
hmm
so stressful. You don't really have to worry too much about money.
yeah, because I liked the school that I was at. Not that I would go back at that one, but it was a very laid back environment. I think I had maybe 17, 18 periods a week, and it was just so laid back. And as soon as I was done with my last period, they would let me go home. And we all got, I got 35,000 baht, and I was happy. They provided an apartment for all of us, nearby, and I was happy as could be. So something, like that, just really laid back, I would be happy to do.
And would your wife be happy to leave America and go back to Thailand?
Yes, when she gets enough money saved up, she wants to go back. She built a house in her village, and it's a really nice house. And there's a big old pond she had dug up. It's all full of fish and frogs. And so she built a really nice house that's her land that she owns. And what's the village? It's in Budidam. Budidam.
And is
Is
that
that?
where you're gonna go? Could you see yourself going back and living in that house?
Yeah, I can part time. I don't know. Based on my how my body is doing, I think if my body is doing great, yeah. And but I might need to live near a hospital, and so I might. My wife does. She has a condo in Non-Tabari, and so I might stay there. And so where I live at full time would depend on how my body is doing. And so, but at least I know whenever we do go to the village, we have a very comfortable place to sleep, whether it's just a week or a month or 2 months, whatever. And and then we always have that place in Bangkok if I need to be near a hospital. And I will have to do some research on what type of health care I can get for myself. What can I get health care as a Thai citizen or as an American? And perhaps if anyone in the comments could maybe share what would be the best option for me as far as health insurance. I'm not quite sure.
It would be an interesting, yeah, that was going to be my next question because it would be an interesting answer because of, your previous health, your condition before. So I don't know. Let's see what the comments say because it would be interesting.
But ultimately, I'm going to always keep this condo here, And so I mean, if worse comes to worse, I'll be on the next flight back home, back here to Utah. If
Would
you
you
know,
rent out the condo?
the plan is for my when my wife's brother and sister, their visa goes through, they're going to live here and take care of it. And there's 2 bedrooms upstairs. This is a pretty big place. You have downstairs, upstairs. I real hesitant to rent this out. I could, but their visa is going to go through, I know, in 10 years. And so that'll put me at 60, my wife at 55. And I think that might be a good time for us to kind of swap places. I would stay here for maybe a 6 months or so just to kind of get them settled in, help them get their driver's license, teach them how to drive, because it's all opposite, and get them acquainted with everything before leaving. And but I plan on I know for sure I will keep this condo forever just because it's my home base.
Perhaps you said you're going back to Thailand for Songkran next year. I mean, that's about 11 months from now, 10, 11 months from now. I mean, maybe we could do a catch up in a year's time to see what your experiences were like going back to Thailand, and did you meet your family? Did you confront them? What did your other relatives say? And it would be good to link up in a year's time and get that side of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will be very careful about it, and because the last thing I want to do is stress out my uncle, and but I will talk about it as politely as possible. And I don't want to be serious about it, but I do want to bring it up in the most diplomatic way, just because of his health. And I don't want him having a heart attack right in front of me. And
Some people would say,
yeah,
who cares? That's his karma. You know, he's the guy who stole your land. I mean, why would you care?
yeah, well, yeah, I
You
understand
have a
that point of
heart. You
view.
have a big
Yeah,
heart.
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't want to, I mean, as a former law enforcement, I used to deal with people who have done awful crimes, and my point of view, as long as they're locked up in their cell, they can live to be 100. I don't care. That's I've literally some of the most awful crimes you can imagine, and we just let them out an hour a day, give them clean clothes, take a shower, use the phone if they want to call anyone, and back in their cell. And that's good enough for me. And that's how they'll spend their life. In fact, we had a law enforcement officer not just a couple of days ago. He was killed, and I saw his picture, and I mean, my God, he looks just like me. He was 21 years old.
Are you saying you look like a 21-year-old?
Well, but I saw his picture. I thought it was a picture of me. No, I don't look 21. I know my age, but when I saw that picture and I saw him in the uniform, like I thought it was a picture of me. And I said, what? I thought someone hijacked my picture or something. And I went, oh my God. And because it was just like me. They always make us take a studio, picture on our uniform with the U.S. flag, and he looked just like me. It's like we could be brothers. And I was like, wow, that guy was only 21. I have high school classmates who didn't even make it to 50. High school. I remember the toughest kid in my high school. I mean, he was the toughest. No one could beat him up. He died in his 40s of stomach cancer. I mean, I thought that guy would live to be 100. He was tough. And to think he lost his life to stomach cancer. And, I had another classmate. He died of kidney disease. And so I think, wow, I'm still here. And so it's just, yeah, I'm just thankful, man. And maybe the last few years going through all this, because I never had medical problems in my life. I've always been healthy. I never missed school as a kid. And, I was always reliable, showed up to work. And here I get diagnosed with a big one. And, and so they did so much to fix me up and, dust me off and get me back on the saddle. And so I just feel very happy. And plus, well, with all that I've been through, you got to be a bit forgiving to even get to this point. And so But yeah, I'm here. I'm happy and happy to be talking with Pete with Thairish Times.
Yeah, 3 videos now we made.
Yeah.
First one was like 3.5 years ago to 20 January 2022. Then we had
Yeah.
2 year gap. We had January 2024, and now we have this one. What'll be nearly June. Well, by the time I release it, it'll probably be June
Hmm.
2025. I mean, it's crazy, but look, it's been a fantastic story. I still think I'd like to follow up with you again in a year just to
Yeah.
see what
Hmm.
the journey's like going back to Thailand after being away for years and meeting your relatives. And I'm sure they're going to have something to say about what's going on.
Hmm.
The
Yep.
Thairish
Hmm.
Times going to be on the case.
All right. Sounds good.
Dakota, brilliant, man. Thanks for doing it, man.
Oh,
Appreciate
you're
it.
welcome. No problem.